Hello, and welcome back to the True Crime Guys podcast. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Michael.
What's up, everybody? How you feeling today? Hopefully you're feeling good, because if you have to go to the doctor...
not a good sign for you.
You know, I'm one of those guys that doesn't go to the doctor.
Dude, I don't
like, I'll be all right.
Yeah.
I think that's why...
Listen, drink some water and wait it out.
Go for a
lot
run.
Of water. Yeah.
What if you got a broken foot? Go for a run. It'll be all right. It'll heal itself.
What, sprained ACL?
Might be a little crooked. Whatever.
Right.
Might crack. It might pop forever.
You got a little pulled hammy, drink some water. Go for a run.
I got all kinds of snaps and crackles. I sound like fucking Rice Krispie treats over here when I stand up.
Dude, I went. I did some sprints yesterday. I felt pretty good.
Sprints are amazing.
I took a couple days off.
I don't like the distance running shit so much, but I feel like you get just as much beneficial shit out of sprints, maybe more.
Yes, dude. I took a couple days off and ran. I felt like a damn deer.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Like you just
rest is also important.
Yes,
a lot of people overtrain themselves for sure. I see it with jiu-jitsu. There's guys that are there like every time I'm in there.
You're
they're all week
progress,
and then you see them like they're just not as engaged, and their injuries start to add up and everything. So you gotta let your body rest for sure.
If your muscles can't heal, they can't grow. They can't.
Yeah, you're tearing your muscles down, and you have to let them, like you said, rebuild up.
Yep. Yeah, so welcome to True Crime Guys Fitness Podcast.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's what we're doing here. A little bit of true crime, a little bit of fitness.
But we started with the point, was that we just don't go to a lot of doctors. And I think that's part of my theory as to why this guy, Harold Shipman, one of the most prolific serial killers in British history.
Maybe the most prolific.
Had largely his victims were women, like older women, not men. And I think part of it is men just don't go to doctors as much as women. I think women live longer for multiple reasons. One of them being they actually like get checkups more regularly. Men are like, it'll be all right. That baseball size fucking tumor on my leg, it'll go away.
I'll just ice it.
Yeah, I'll just give it a name. Draw a face on it.
Yeah, I got 2 kneecaps. What's it to you?
You're supposed to have 2, bro.
No, 3? I mean on one leg.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. I should have clarified.
Yeah, I got 3 kneecaps.
Yeah, I got 3 kneecaps.
One of them's named Johnny. Yeah. But yeah, this guy
was an animal. I really can't, aside from a few of them where he benefited from wills and stuff like that, that was my first instinct. I was like, okay, he's a doctor, he's killing people and taking their stuff. Yeah. But it doesn't seem like the motive.
No, I think he just got greedy at a certain point, or he was ready to retire and he saw a nice estate he could grab on the way out.
So all those before that, he just liked to see people die?
No, I think he actually, man, I have my own theories. We'll get into it.
Okay.
But yeah, I have a theory we'll dive into later.
All right. Well,
it's maybe not the common belief with him, but...
Well, I'm interested to hear it.
Okay.
Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
It's the Shipman effect. In your house like a deadly insect with higher intellect. It's where the roads of trust and death intersect. And as your eyes roll back in your head, you don't even get a chance to reflect on the life you just lost.
You have to trust somebody. And if you can't trust your doctor, who are you supposed to trust?
Just how many patients in the town of Hyde has this doctor killed?
Do you feel the rush? Pulsing through your veins is never enough. But there's no pain, then there's a hush. Things will never be the same.
My mother trusted Dr. Shipman. He cynically and callously betrayed that trust.
For your own evil and wicked purpose, you took advantage of and grossly abused the trust each of your victims placed in you. You were, after all, each victim's doctor.
Here we go. As your pulse starts to slow, you never know. You're just doing what you're told. He wants your soul, and he's come to collect. It's the Shipman effect. Here we go. As your pulse starts to slow, you never know. You're just doing what you're told. He wants your soul, and he's come to collect. It's the Shipman effect. the Shipman effect.
All right, our case this week. Harold Frederick Shipman. Doctor, British doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Doctor Who, you could say no.
An evil bloke.
An evil bloke.
For sure.
We got definitely
Evil wanker.
Get ready for the British accents.
That's right.
Those of you that love it.
You know
those of you that hate it.
You know what sucked though? When I was listening to the book, I kept forgetting it was in Britain.
Yeah.
For some reason, because it was narrated by an American.
That's why you got to watch the special on YouTube. There's like an ABC special on him.
Or BBC?
ABC, BBC. I don't know. There was a couple different ones. I think there was an
okay.
ABC one. I mean, there was like an American one maybe.
Oh, okay.
But they were interviewing a bunch of British people.
Oh, okay.
So
nice.
It's easier to stay in that mindset.
I guess I should have watched that. I'm sorry. Yeah. Hindsight's 2020.
Yeah. So patients would check in and they wouldn't check out. He would basically went on to murder potentially in the hundreds. Kind of like the official number they have is 218, and that's after they did inquiries or investigations. You know, they have different terminology over Britain. So it's like an investigation's an inquiry.
Right.
Detective is a, what was it? What's the term they use for an investigator? It's like a inspector. Inspector, which
That's
inspectors over here are like guys that you hate when you're trying to build something.
Yeah,
they come out and like pick apart your fucking structure.
Your plumbing's not up to code here.
Meanwhile, those are homicide detectives over there,
Right.
inspectors.
You're right. Inspectors are hated.
Oh my God, way more
They're
than
so hated.
detectives. There's not anybody that likes inspectors. Dude.
No, absolutely not.
Sorry if you're an inspector out there.
Yeah.
Or if you're a detective over in Britain. So Harold Shipman was an English general practitioner and one of the most prolific serial killers in history of the world, but definitely the most prolific over in Great Britain.
Absolutely.
And all of the UK, I'd imagine. On January 31st, 2000, a jury found him guilty of the murder of 15 patients under his care. He was sentenced to life in prison with the recommendation that he never be released. However, that conviction of those 15 patients really kind of opened the door for them looking at his past and investigating all of the deaths that he had been directly involved in.
Right.
Because he had overseen patients that had died like in the 800s or close to 1,000 of them.
It was unreal.
And so they had to go back and like re-examine all of these. It was an undertaking to try and look into all of the patients that had died under his care.
Right. And he wasn't releasing any information.
Oh, hell no. He never said a damn thing.
No.
He never pleaded. He always pleaded not guilty.
Yep.
And so they had to go and exhume a bunch of bodies and basically do toxicology on them. And so, yeah, it was a big ordeal. But it's pretty incredible to think how long he got away with this, because it was, like 20 plus years he was murdering patients.
At least. Yeah. He didn't get caught till like almost 2000, right? It was like 98 or 99.
He was doing it back in the early 80s, and then he was still going. He had opened his own practice in the 90s and was still going. Yeah, coming up on the 2000s, he was still doing this. Unbelievable.
Somehow he kept getting his own practice. That's what just baffled me. I'm like, this guy, he gets like questioned. They bring him in. He's super suspicious. And then they're kind of like, he needs to be under the care of other doctors. And then he gets there and then he wins over those doctors. Or he's so difficult to work with that they don't want to work with him anymore. And then he ends up getting his own practice. Twice he did this. He went through this whole routine of getting his own practice. Yeah. Shitting on people underneath him, undermining other doctors and shit, and then got his own practice. And then just went right back to what he was doing.
Yep. The Shipman Inquiry, a 2-year-long investigation of all deaths certified by Shipman, examined Shipman's crimes. The inquiry identified 218 victims and estimated his total victim count at 250, about 80% of whom were elderly women, as we had alluded to earlier about the largely women. His youngest confirmed victim was a 41-year-old man, although significant suspicion arose that he had killed patients as young as 4. I don't know if I believe that.
I don't believe that either.
And it wasn't really in the story.
Because he's more of a house call killer, if you will.
Right.
And I don't think you're making house calls for 4-year-olds.
Yeah, and you're being watched closely by the parents.
Exactly.
Too.
Yeah,
And usually he had to get them alone in the room. You know, a lot of times he would kill people and their family would be in the next room over.
Yeah. This guy was a shitty person, but I don't think he killed 4-year-olds.
Right. So the book we got was by Ryan Green. We've at least done 1 or 2 books. I know the Mockingbird Hill Massacre one was Ryan Green, which that was a different style. I didn't care for his style in that one, and I've been kind of avoiding his books since then because I thought maybe all of his books were done in that fashion where he does it through the eyes of the killer and he's speaking for them.
That's
Remember that?
He added a bunch of lines.
This book was not like that.
Yeah.
To be fair, this was just your average true crime nonfiction writing, and it was good. So it's called Harold Shipman, the true story of Britain's most notorious serial killer. So And it does have an audible form, obviously, and it's only a little over 2 hours long, but it's very detailed. Gave you everything you needed to know. Yeah. Very well done book. And then like I said, I also watched a special on YouTube.
Remember what that was called? If you just Google Harold Shipman, it's the BBC or the ABC ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a couple good
ones. What was it called? It had a play on words like License to Kill or some shit like that.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember.
Perfect.
Much of Britain's legal structure concerning healthcare and medicine was reviewed and modified as a result of Shipman's crimes. That is one good point, is that a lot of stuff changed for the better after him being discovered. And they also thought that it was possible that due to his prolificness, the fact that he killed so many and got away with it for so long, things changed. But it's possible that smaller killing sprees by other practitioners were going on and never caught because they just weren't as prolific as him. And maybe things never would have changed had there not been a guy that was so successful at this for so long and finally made a mistake, and ends up changing things for the better. Sometimes with the bad, there's some good that comes about.
Right. And it's still happening now. Like the temptation has to be so great for some people. Like if you're already a little morally skewed and you see these people who have these big wills and they have these valuable things and the only thing standing in the way is them and they're already suffering.
Or if you just don't like seeing human suffering and maybe you don't, a lot of times family members are keeping someone alive beyond what they should be.
For the family, not so much for
out
the victim,
out of their own selfishness, because they just don't want to let them go, even though that person wants to go. Granted, you can't do anything anyway. It's not like you can just say, kill them.
Yeah.
It's not legal to do that, but
so you're saying
if you're a
that
doctor and you've got that disconnection where it's not your loved one, and you also don't want to see them suffer, and you just inject them with morphine and they slip away and they're gone.
You look at it as assisted suicide.
Yeah, and you look at his background with his mother that we're going to get into.
That's right.
And that's why my theory a little bit, I guess we could just spoil it now, is just to say that I think a lot of times he thought he was doing good. I don't know if he got off on murdering them. I think he was more being humanitarian in a sense.
Really?
Yeah, I do think a lot of these were him just saying, you know what, they're going to suffer. Maybe they're not right now, but at the end is not good. Most of them were terminal. They weren't like directly like they're going to die this week.
Yeah.
But they were very old.
There were a few cases where these ladies were in decent health, were in good health actually for their age, getting around well, not living with anyone, didn't need any help driving around.
I think it started as the way I'm saying, and then the more he did it, he just got a little more lackadaisical about it. Like, in a few years she's gonna suffer. Let's just take her out.
Right? We don't want to get to that suffering part.
Yeah, she's everything's great right now. Let's end it on a good note.
So you think it was like in a rush, getting away with this too?
Yeah, and I think I think there was different motives for different victims because I think the book made a bunch of different theories at the end of it, which was another cool part about the book. The author gave a bunch of different possible scenarios for why he did it, and some of the victims were a nuisance to him, and he was overheard saying, "This person is a hypochondriac, and I'm just tired of dealing with them." And I think. So, I mean, he's a monster, obviously. Almost none of these killings were justified, but I think there were instances, and I think he did start out with a certain motive, and then it got skewed.
Yeah, but he didn't get rich off of it, though.
No.
Which is.
And I'm sure he made good money as a doctor.
So it's got to be a personal something.
He was a workaholic, and I don't know if he really enjoyed the money he had anyway. He was always working. He had the biggest patient base at every practice he ever had. He always had the most patients. He was always the most beloved doctor in the area. He was actually like on waiting lists. Like the older people would tell others about him, and then if you were lucky, you got to have Dr. Shipman.
Maybe he was just addicted to having that control, that superiority over people's lives. Because think about as your doctor,
for sure.
When you're in the room with a doctor, you feel inferior. You're like, okay, I'm obviously not as smart as you are. You went 12 years of medical school,
and I'm very dependent on you.
I'm very dependent on you. I have to listen to what you say.
My well-being is.
It's almost like the power. It's very similar to the power of like a pastor, like a very like a Joel Osteen.
My fate is in your hands, type of thing.
Yeah.
For a doctor, my life, but for a pastor, my afterlife is in your hands.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Much of Britain's legal structure concerning healthcare and medicine. So a lot of this stuff was reviewed after his capture. He's the only British doctor to have been found guilty of murdering his patients, although other doctors have been acquitted of similar crimes or convicted on lesser charges. To think he's the only one that's done this is naive. Yeah. For sure, doctors have done.
Don't be fooling yourself. It's still happening right now.
Yeah, maybe on a smaller scale, but there's times where they could have kept a person going a little longer and they said, what's the point?
Yeah, I think if you have an elderly relative that is in at-home care, when their doctor is there, I think someone should be there.
Yeah.
Somebody in the family, like if you have a mother or a father that is getting in-home care, I think you should be there. When
you also
unless it's around the clock, obviously. You can't do that, but...
You also have to consider the people that are doing this profession that are taking care of your elderly loved one or whatnot. They get jaded after a while. It's human nature. Just when they see death on a regular basis, and like I said, they don't have that connection to your loved one like you do. They're just looking at it like, well, this person's going to die eventually.
Yep.
And let's get over with.
Well, it's like what we were talking about in the death episode with funeral directors, how they get jaded.
Yeah.
It's just another cell. It's just a cell to them. That's all it is.
I tell the story of not witnessing a shooting, but like just the direct aftermath. One time, this is an example of someone being jaded by their profession. One time I was hanging out with friends. I'll just try and keep it short. And we were hanging out at this house. My wife was there. This is a long time ago when we first got together. Anyways, my wife and my buddy's wife at the time went to go get some pizza. They parked at a gas station. My wife met her there. My wife left her truck at the gas station. She hopped in with my buddy's wife. They went to get the pizza. We at the same time were down the street at the house hanging out. We're like, hey, let's go for a drive. Let's go get some beer or whatever. We come down that same road towards the gas station where my wife's truck was parked. And as we're coming up to that gas station, there's a dude laying in the road. And there's like a crowd standing around. And we were like, what the hell's going on? We pull over. We see this guy's in the street like in duress, like he's coughing up blood, and we're like asking the people that are standing around like, what's going on? And they're like basically making like notions like he got shot. They do like finger guns. We're like, oh shit,
like nobody even wanted to say it.
So and so we're like basically watching this guy die, and the paramedics come finally a few minutes later, and they're just like I was just blown away because I was like, to me this is like a big deal. I'm like, holy shit, this guy's gonna die. Somebody doesn't do something right now. I didn't know the circumstances as to whether it was his fault he got shot.
And they do trauma every day.
And so they pull up and like they're taking their sweet ass time. They get out. And they literally like are like casually walking over to him and like joking. And like just kind of like la da da. And I'm like, dude, hurry up! He's gonna fucking die. And he died. Like the next day, I saw it in the newspaper that he had died. And to be fair, he was involved in a shootout. I don't know the circumstances, but he was shooting back at someone. It was, and luckily, it was like a 5-minute window where my wife and my buddy's wife was in that parking lot. Literally, they parked there, they left, and it happened. We could have been involved in it. They could have been involved in it. It was like a 5 to 10 minute window that we just happened to not be there. My wife's truck was in the picture on the newspaper because they took a picture of the scene. So it was just crazy. But like that's what I mean, like jaded. You can become jaded by your profession, because that was a human life. Maybe it was his fault the shooting happened. Maybe he was just defending himself with a gun. Who knows? But I think the fact that he was involved in a shootout, he was shooting back. Maybe that part of played into it. Like, well, fuck him anyway. He's in a shootout in the public. Who cares? Let him die, type of thing. But
man, my dad did a stint on like a rescue squad back home like forever ago when I was younger. And I think he worked there he worked with him for like 2 or 3 years. And he would do like he would do like nights at the races in Charlotte. And like people would get in fights, dude. And people would, like, they would break beer bottles and be like fucking stabbing people with like, drunk race fans are insane. And he didn't tell me about any of this stuff. Like I didn't even know. Like I thought his job was so normal.
Your dad was like Roadhouse.
And then years later, he would have he would tell me all
these. Pain don't hurt.
I would like, years later as I got older, he would tell me these stories of stuff that he experienced. I'm like, and then you were coming home and like throwing ball with me and stuff.
Right.
Like how do you just get used to it. You absolutely get used to it. And like now, he wouldn't be jaded towards it. Like if he's seen somebody hurt now, it would be profound.
He's had enough distance from that time that it's a big deal again.
Exactly.
It's weird. The stuff that we can get accustomed to as human beings. Like you look at history, like you go back far enough. You listen to Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. I was listening to the Mongol series on the way over here, actually. And just the shit that they saw on a regular basis, a mountain of bones that looked like a snowy mountain, like that was like, it's just another day.
It's another day, man. Like with Vlad the Impaler. Just
same shit. Now we're jaded by life being too smooth and easy now. If we're lucky, we may never even seen a dead body. But Shipman's seen his fair share, that's for sure. Let's talk about his early life. He was born on January 14th, 1946. He shares a birthday with LL Cool J.
Oh, okay.
And Dave Grohl.
All right.
One great artist and one B-level actor and rapper.
We'll let you.
I'm not a big fan of LL
now.
Cool J. I heard an interview, if you ever listened to the Jason Ellis radio show, I used to be a big fan of that. And he did an interview on Ellis once, and he was the biggest dick ever for no reason.
Yeah, but it's tough.
I mean,
man,
he's
when
probably
you're in the
doing
spotlight like that. You know what I'm saying?
He's doing a bunch of interviews. He took a question Ellis said wrong. Maybe he didn't understand. Ellis has got a goofy. He's an Australian, with ex-skateboarder with a goofy personality, and maybe he just took the question wrong.
Yeah,
maybe he thought Ellis was questioning his manhood or something, and he just started saying, "Get these balls" over and over again for some reason. It's very weird. You can look it up on YouTube. Look up the Jason Ellis LL Cool J interview. It's pretty entertaining.
Get these balls.
Yeah, shout out to those down under that know about Ellis. But yeah, I listened to that radio show for a while. Kind of shaped my Australian accent, mate.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Get these balls.
Get these balls. Hey, these balls, mate.
Yeah. So yeah, he was born January 14th, 1946 at the Bestwood Estate in Nottingham. So is that one of those ones that we pronounce wrong? Because look, we've been working on it.
I think Nottingham is
We now
right.
know that Gloucester is Gloucester. Gloucester. People have corrected us on that, so if we come across that, we'll know. But people have corrected us a bunch of times on these British shit.
Right.
They also enjoy our terrible mispronunciations as well. So
yeah, right.
You know, we can't win. We can't win. We can't win and we can't lose. What are you going to do?
You can't.
He was the second of 3 children of Harold Frederick Shipman and Vera Britton. Affectionately known as Freddie, he had an older sister named Pauline, and 4 years after he was born, his younger brother Clive came along. However, Freddie, little Freddie, or Harold Shipman, was his mother's favorite by far, and it's well known that she saw him as the brightest and most promising of her offspring. That old shtick, where serial killers were
the favorite, the mama's boy.
The mama's boy, over doted on. He actually, his mother made sure he always was dressed up with the suit and tie and everything, and his other siblings could kind of dress casually. Like he was like
to that extent,
her glowing child with a halo over it.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize it was that to that extent.
And she was controlling over all of them, but even more so with him.
He's got like a closet of tuxes, and they're wearing shirts with holes in them.
She would dictate who they were allowed to be friends with, where they went, and even what they wore. Shipman was very close to his mother, who ended up dying of lung cancer when he was 17. But leading up to that is a big part of his life, because she was bedridden for a while with terminal lung cancer, and he was by her bedside every day after school and tending to her. And he was even in the room with the physician that was tending to her and giving her morphine, and he would see that effect on his mother, where she would be in extreme pain, coughing, all that. And then it's gone. The doctor would administer morphine, and all of a sudden a sense of relief would come over her. And a lot of scholars believe that played a big role in how he acted as a professional later.
Maybe you were right with that theory. Maybe he thought, I couldn't help my mom, but I can help all these people who are in the same type of pain.
Yeah.
And the only way to get rid of the pain is to end them.
Right.
That's in his mind. That's what he thought. To end their life is the only way to truly get rid of this pain. Yeah, I mean, who knows, man? Maybe he did think it.
There's some horrendous stories of mothers. I've heard one on Sword and Scale back in the day, where a mother had drowned her kids. She had 4 kids and drowned them, and it was because she viewed the world as cruel, and she believed in an afterlife, and she thought this was the quickest way to get them out of this cruel world. And she had beyond love for her kids, like most mothers do.
God.
And it's a horrendous story, but a lot of people view life as more brutal than letting them go, and maybe that's kind of what he developed over time. And morphine, one of the better ways to go, it sounds like. Like you just drift into sleep and you're gone. And
it does sound pretty blissful.
We talked about death in the death episode, and how your face gets contorted.
That's on Patreon, guys.
Yeah, on Patreon. We talked a lot about death in that episode. Was what it was all about.
Patreon.com/truecrimeguys.
Right. And the faces of death after you're gone, you know, the contorted, wicked looking face. And it sounds like that isn't necessarily the case with morphine. It looks like you're just sleeping peacefully, because you drift into an easy sleep and then you're gone. So maybe he just viewed that as being, I don't know, what's the word? Being
merciful,
sympathetic and merciful. That's the word.
Yeah. You know what's funny is that religion can help someone live a life that they don't love because of the hope of the afterlife. But in that instance, it can do the opposite. It can make them not want to put up with a life that they don't love and just want to get straight to the afterlife.
Right. But that's not how it's supposed to work, right?
God, I never thought about that. I mean, I guess it doesn't sound crazy.
You're supposed to do good here and share. Aren't you? Obviously, I'm not the most versed on religion, but aren't you supposed to share God's love and everything while you're here and try to,
just because,
share it with as many people as you can, and then when you die, however you're supposed to. You're not supposed to commit suicide. Or
well, here's the harsh reality: is that a lot of diehard religious people, they are sharing love and they are doing things, but they're really not that happy. Yeah, it's ulterior motive, but it's also they're not doing so great. Like maybe not financially, they don't really have a lot. They don't.
Not all of them. You're saying some
they're
are
working probably a job that's just like whatever. But you know what? I'm working for the kingdom. You know what I mean? I got a goal in mind.
When I die, it's going to be glorious.
Yeah, you don't
where I go.
It's almost like you don't have as many ambitions as far as as moving up in life because you think you're going to be the supreme. When you're
just a placeholder for now.
Exactly.
Being on this earth.
Yeah.
Another part of this experience, watching his mother go through this, was that ended up shaping his career were visits from the family doctor. As we'd mentioned, how he spent bedside time with his mother dying and the doctor being there administering the morphine.
Right.
In the end stages of her disease, Vera was in constant pain. The doctor would come to their home and administer morphine. Shipman would watch in awe as her pain almost instantly disappeared. His fascination with opiates became a lifelong one, first as a user and later in life as a modus operandi for ending his victims' lives. His mother passed away on June 21st, 1963. Was that right before or after JFK was assassinated? That was right around that time.
11/22/63.
Okay, so a few months later.
Was
so
when
she
JFK was, because of
she
the
was
Stephen King book.
She was in Britain, so I'm sure she didn't care. But
yeah.
Let's talk about his future wife, who would always be by his side, Primrose. On November 5th, 1996, Shipman married Primrose May Oxtoby. He was 19 at the time, and she was only 17 and 5 months pregnant with their first child. Primrose had also grown up with a very strict mother, and it was something that had brought the two together, so they had a very similar upbringing with an overbearing mother. Despite a whirlwind courtship, they ended up being a very good match and had a total of 4 children together, and Primrose would stay loyal to Shipman until the day he died and end up being a defender of his, vehemently defending his innocence in multiple occasions when he was under fire early on for drug abuse as a doctor, and then later on for the murder convictions.
Well, I'm sure he shared the story of his mother and how her life ended and the way it ended, and I'm sure he shared probably more with her than we think. Mm-hmm. I know she's kind of glossed over, at least in the book she was. Mm-hmm. It was just, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all the book talked about her, right?
See her
it doesn't even really mention her.
You see her a bit in the specials that were done for her if you watch them on YouTube. You see that she was going to his court hearings and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you don't know much about her. I think she was just kind of, I think she was a caretaker at home and just kind of always there for him and tending to his needs. And I think he was gone a lot, so you don't hear a lot about her because he was always out tending to patients and whatnot. And she was at home tending to the household. Let's talk about his medical school and early career. He went on to study medicine at Leeds School of Medicine, graduating in 1970 at the age of 24. He was very talented student early on, and then it became harder for him. He wasn't brilliant as far as he couldn't just ace every test. He had to grind, and he was dedicated to becoming a doctor, and he was appreciated for his work ethic because he would fail tests, go right back, and he never faltered on his concept of being anything other than a doctor. He was always going to be a doctor no matter what. He had his mind made up from the time that he witnessed his mother die.
And I think if anything speaks positively to him in this whole episode, it's that.
Yeah.
It's that's kind of, because I don't think the motivation for him to keep trying over and over again was so he could kill people and take their money. I think it was so he could help people. I think he genuinely wanted to help people and end their suffering. Yeah. And he felt like that was his only calling. That was the only way he could make it up to his mother for not being able to help her.
Yeah. Like we said, I think he went into it with good motivations, and then it turned dark, as it does a lot of times.
Right.
He began working at Pontefract General Infirmary at Pontefract, Yorkshire. Probably ruined all those words. Pontefract, Yorkshire. Yorkshire. This was an intern-type position, and after 3 years, he became a fully registered physician. He then took a supervisory role and spent 3 more years at the same facility. In 1974, he took his first position as a general practitioner, and his dream was made true.
Wow.
And that's when things started going bad. Once Shipman became a junior partner at his new practice, he took his role very seriously and began to complete overhaul of the record-keeping system. And so he was he could be tough to work with. He was known to talk down to people that were at lower positions.
Yeah, very
The other
controlling.
physicians liked him because he had a general respect for them for being on par with him and his prowess. But like anybody that came up to him and said anything that he viewed as wrong, he would tear them down.
You know what? I feel like that's pretty normal for doctors. Nurses, right in. Let us know about that. I'm curious,
A lot of dick
but I'm pretty
doctors.
sure I can see that in that culture. I could see that because, I have a few nurses in my family, and they all say that. And I have a sister-in-law who works at a vet, and she's basically an animal nurse, and she says that even about vets.
Yeah.
Like, because she works at a practice where there's multiple vets, and like between all the vets, they're cool with each other.
Yeah.
But they talk down to all the techs and stuff like that, and it's their way or the highway.
My wife actually has an uncle that owns a vet.
Oh, really?
A vet business, and yeah, he was a dick too.
Yeah.
He was a dick to her a lot of times.
Well, I mean,
I get it. It's a serious thing. Like if a nurse or a nurse or whoever screws up, it could be somebody's life or an animal's life or whatever. So
not to mention
they have to be stern at times, but sometimes it's over the top,
And not to mention the training they have to go through. You know what I mean? They should know what they're talking about. Yeah. And in Shipman's case, he went through it more than once. So he, I mean, I'm sure he kind of knew what he was talking about at least at first, but he was very controlling.
Right. The other project he took on was the disposal of expired drugs and occasionally restocking the practice's supplies. So that comes in handy. It comes in handy if you're a drug abuser.
I'll take care of the drugs. Don't worry about it, guys. Go on home.
Yeah. It's like it's like letting your fucking dog take over disposing for dinner. I'll take care of it, guys.
I'll take care of it, guys.
All these leftovers, I'll make sure they go out in the trash or
package
whatever.
them right up.
Yeah. Or a kid take care of the extra candy.
Yeah, there you go.
In February of 1975, it was noted by the Home Office Drugs Inspectorate that Shipman's practice was ordering an unusually large quantity of pethidine, a narcotic painkiller. While pethidine was the most common drug used to treat acute pain in the 20th century, there were concerns that Shipman was either selling or using the excess quantity. So yeah, very valuable drug, very powerful drug, basically like an opiate painkiller.
Wasn't it confirmed later that he was using some as well?
Yes, he was. He was an abuser.
Yeah, like his veins were like fucked up.
Yeah, he started having seizures and stuff.
Yeah.
An investigation into the matter didn't go very far, however. The pharmacist the practice purchased from was sure that there could be nothing amiss. He claimed that Shipman was the exact example of what a doctor should be. The investigation ended up being closed, although investigations would continue to watch Shipman later on. So early on, he had doctors that would vouch for him and say, "This he's not doing anything dirty. He's exactly." I mean, he was on the cutting edge of medicine early on. He actually would go into these practices with older doctors. He had just gotten out of school, and he was kind of schooling them on the new way of doing things. And a lot of times he was very well respected for that.
They shouldn't have asked the doctors. They should have asked like his receptionist or something.
Yeah.
Somebody that probably hated him.
Part of the problem is with him, and I think why he was so successful, and the book kind of touched on this near the end, is that he had such a professional look and demeanor and attitude that when he went into anywhere, he was taken seriously right away.
Yeah.
He was a man of business, and you weren't going to question a guy like that because you were probably afraid a little bit of how he might react, and he might tear you down if you questioned what he was doing, because he, like I said, he fit the mold of like a very professional doctor,
right?
A man of business when he came in, and you're not going to like, all right, I'll take his word for it. He knows what he's doing, obviously.
Right.
And so he got away with a lot of stuff by just being Mr. Serious. In May of 1975, Primrose, his wife, called one of the practice's other doctors, stating that Harold had blacked out in the bathroom and fallen and hit his head on the sink. This was not an isolated incident, and he was eventually diagnosed with epilepsy, although the cause could not be determined. So that was from the drug abuse. It
was from the drug abuse.
Yeah, all the pethidine that he'd been taking.
Onset. They didn't know at this time.
Yeah.
But we later find out.
Yep. At Shipman's own initiative, he stopped driving and had Primrose shuttle him to and from the office and drive him to the house calls. So yeah, that's how bad his drug abuse got. In the meantime, suspicions again began to grow over the amount of pethidine ordered by Shipman. He was again interviewed in June of 1975. It's a shame he didn't it sounds bad, but just overdose at this time. He was on the verge of it. You know what I mean? Because it would have saved a whole lot of lives later on had he just taken a little too much pethidine himself.
Yeah. Too bad he had other good doctors around him.
Right. Isn't that the irony of the whole thing?
Yeah.
This time, the register meant to track the drugs was found to be MIA, and without a record of where they went, the investigation once again ground to a halt. I feel like that's silly. Like, oh, you weren't keeping track of all these? Isn't that malpractice? Like, isn't that like a big fuck up? Like, all these drugs, you're ordering way too much drugs, and there's no track of where they went. So, isn't that like guilt right there? Instead, they go, forget about it.
Right?
Isn't that why we keep records of things? Like if you're a checker at a grocery store and you can't account for like money missing out of your register, but you don't know where it went. Is like, that just all of a sudden
we don't know where it went?
You're innocent.
So it's just, oh well.
I lost
Can't
it.
blame you. Could have went anywhere.
I checked the floor. I don't know. Maybe it fell over here somewhere. I don't know. In September of 1975, Shipman's colleagues discovered evidence he in fact was using and called him into the office to stage an intervention. Ding, 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 ding,
Yeah.
ding, ding, ding. That show is so
There
good.
we go. They should have just left him alone.
Intervention. Love that show. He admitted to the drug use, but tried to use the camaraderie he had built with them to persuade them to hide his addiction rather than seek help. That's a desperate measure. That's like a Hail Mary.
Yeah, it
Like,
is.
guys, I know I've been
it's
stealing from the
me.
practice. I know I'm a terrible
Hey.
drug abuser,
Hey,
but guys,
it's me.
come on.
It's like, we go get beers after work.
Right.
Come on.
They're like, no, we don't. You're always a dick.
You're always passed out in the bathroom, you asshole.
Right. We're worried if you mix alcohol with all the fucking drug abuse, we might be responsible for your death.
Right.
The partners declined, shocker, to participate in his scheme, which launched Shipman into a tirade, revealing his true colors. He initially resigned, but then withdrew it, letting the partners know that they would have to force him out. Dang. That's a desperate drug abuser right there. He's like, this is my in with these drugs. I don't think he's worried about his job. I think he's worried about that.
He's worried about losing them drugs,
Yeah,
dude.
exactly.
Because at this point, his withdrawal symptoms would be at. Oh my
terrible.
God. He wouldn't be able to do his job.
Yeah. Dude, I had a surgery on my, I think it was my foot or I don't know. I had some surgeries, either my wrist or my foot, and had plates and screws put in and whatnot. And I got put on Percocets. First, they tried to give me oxys, and those didn't do anything for me. So I got Percocets that actually helped with the pain.
Yeah.
And I was getting them like every 4 hours, and I got addicted quick. Like, I saw it. Luckily, I saw what was happening. The fact that I was looking forward to these every 4 hours too much, and then I would just be a vegetable on the couch for the next 4 hours until the next one.
Yeah.
And I recognized that I needed to stop, and I just quit cold turkey. And within, this was only a week or two I was on these, and I was already had bad withdrawals, like cold sweats and like miserable.
Dude, in the health field now, like, people think that any kind of pain or discomfort,
You shouldn't have to deal with it.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to deal with it at all. It's
should
part of the
only be
healing process. It lets you know how far to go. It lets you know what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing.
Those should only be for the first day or two after surgery when you're in unbearable pain, where it's like you shouldn't have to deal with this level of pain, but some level of pain is
like
to be expected. That's part of the healing process.
If you can sit on the couch and watch TV with the pain you're in after a surgery, then I think you should deal with it.
Yeah.
As long as you're not like squinting and you know what I mean. Just like
maybe some ibuprofen, just kind of take the edge off a little bit.
Even that's shit for you.
Even that, I mean,
God
if you take it every day, a lot, ibuprofen. If you're like popping 800s like crazy, that's not good.
No.
It's not good. But
liver depletion.
They do knock out a headache, man, every now and then.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
All right. After seeking legal advice, the partners were able to do just that, and Shipman was ejected from the practice. So that it's just that, as in he forced them to force him out. They did just that. They forced him out. Authorities were also informed of his illegal drug use. So, it would have been smarter for him to just walk away. Now, by saying, you guys got to force me out, they were forced to go seek, legal help or help from the police.
Right.
On November 28th, 1975, police once again interviewed Shipman, this time with certain knowledge of his drug abuse. So basically he couldn't call their bluff anymore.
Right.
The first time they interviewed, he's like, no. And now they're like, we know. Your
like,
fucking partners all told us.
Your arm looks like a pincushion. Get real, bro.
Right. He had collapsed all of his veins.
Yeah. Yep.
That takes a lot of work. The detective that interviewed him noticed that his veins had collapsed. It typically takes up to 5 years of constant intravenous drug use to cause this to happen. Detectives realized that he had likely been using since he graduated from medical school.
That is a long time.
Yeah. Shipman checked into a rehab facility and was discharged after 30 days. I'm sure that was a brutal 30 days, although he remained under psychiatric supervision for several years. And that is, as we know, I believe that was the end of his drug abuse of morphine. He just started basically administering it to others.
Yeah, I think at a certain point, he really did get addicted, and then once he was healed, he was like, okay, I really don't need this anymore. I don't think he had the willpower or the time or dedication to quit this.
Yeah.
I don't think he could have.
Soon after checking out of rehab, his seizures stopped completely, and he went back to driving himself around. Shipman was eventually charged and was fined 600 pounds for this. He quickly moved on to become a GP at the Donnybrook Medical Center near Manchester in 1977. He was upfront with the other doctors about the practice about his previous drug problems and subsequent convictions. So yeah, that was a smart thing that he did when he would go apply for these jobs. He actually admitted to his past of drug abuse and his conviction, because he knew eventually they were going to find out.
Yeah, I mean, isn't
and
that
they
the
were
law,
able
though?
to accept it. He said, "I went to rehab. I'm clean. You can test me, whatever."
And he was pretty charismatic. You know what I mean? Like he was a good guy. Like we talked about earlier with his appearance and his demeanor. He seemed
very
harmless.
professional.
Yeah.
He once again became a leader in the practice and was heavily involved in the community. Shipman was also way ahead of his time in terms of preventative care. He suggested wellness checkups for his patients, regardless if they were feeling sick or not, which was actually really uncommon at the time. To go see your doctor if you didn't need anything, just to get checked up on, which is something I don't do, and I should.
Yeah, the rest of the medical field caught on to that quick. They're like, all right, we can charge for absolutely nothing.
Hey,
okay.
Yeah.
We can come in, check a heart, check a reflex. All right.
Right. Let's get him on the monthly program.
Yeah.
This did not become common practice for quite some time, however. Shipman was loved by his patients, as he often spent more time than necessary with each patient, chatting them up about current events and their lives. He often made house calls to check in on patients as well. His relationship with his partners was less warm, however, as he often was very insistent on things being done his way. In 1991, he announced his intention to leave the practice. He told his colleagues...
Here we go.
He told his
back out on his own.
He told his colleagues he was leaving because he did not like the computer system that had been introduced in the practice in 1989. Imagine the computer program in 1989. Black with the green font or whatever. Yeah. Looks like the Matrix coding and shit. He also disagreed with how his partners allocated the money they received from the National Health Service. However, these were things that he later grew to love and be all about. So at the time, it just seemed like an excuse to get out of there and get his own practice going.
It was. That's all it was.
Yeah.
Yep.
He opened his own office in August of 1992, taking some of the staff and many of the patients from his previous practice with him. That's fucked up.
Yeah, it is.
Shipman became even more popular, especially with elderly patients, as he was more than willing to do home visits.
Now, more popular is an understatement. Like there was like a waiting list to be one of his patients. It was like considered like you won the lottery to have him as your doctor.
Yep. New patients found him by word of mouth, and he became so popular he was unable to take in new patients. New patients who were accepted into the practice described their excitement as feeling as if they won the lottery, like you said. Suspicions are raised around this time, however. As part of his strategy for hiding his crimes, Shipman would recommend cremation to all of the families of patients who had passed away. So this is him. This is premeditation on his part.
Yep.
As far as trying to get away with the murdering of these patients, because if you're cremated, there's no body to exhume. There's no toxicology. There's none of that. It's just the evidence is gone. It's dust.
It's kind of hard to find the heroin in a body that's been cremated.
Yeah. Talked a lot about cremation in our recent death episode on True Crime Guys Patreon. Patreon.com/True Crime Guys. Like the little shameless plugs in the middle of the episode.
That's how we do it.
You freeloaders, go check it out.
There's another 1-star review. Way to go, Lauren.
I tried to listen, and then they started dogging me because I don't pay for anything.
Oh, shit.
You can do it in a male voice too. Started listening and then you're talking shit because I don't pay.
Well, fuck you. 1 star. I'm a freeloader.
Because cremation effectively ended the ability to learn anything about a person's cause of death, several control forms were put in place to prevent foul play. The first was Form B. This form was to be filled out by a doctor who had taken care of the deceased while they were living and identified the body after their death. That would be him, Dr. Shipman, would be dealing with Form B. The form asked for details about the medical history, cause of death, and certified that the body had been identified. This was meant to establish whether cause of death was consistent with the patient's medical history, which most of the time was not, because he was giving them a large dose of morphine, which killed them, which had nothing to do with their previous medical history.
Exactly.
The next was Form C, was to be filled out by a doctor from another practice. This doctor was supposed to question the doctor who filled out Form B and certify that the deceased did not die under suspicious circumstances. So a checks and balances type of thing. Basically checking up on your shit to make sure it's legit.
Right.
Which a lot of times doctors are just kind of like took that Form B at its word, like, yeah, okay, I believe it. Whatever. You're another doctor. It's all good.
Could you imagine if you're a doctor that's on the same level, you're Dr. C, and then you undermine Dr. B's? You're like, what the fuck, dude? You weren't even there.
Yeah, you don't even know this patient. I've been dealing with this patient for years.
Exactly.
And you're going to tell me how to do my job?
Yeah, I can't really see a doctor going against
I think most of the time they just went ahead and stamped it like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
All right, you stamp mine when I come over
Sounds good
too.
to me. Yeah, exactly.
You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Yep.
A third form, Form F, was filled out at the crematorium by checking over the previous 2 forms and giving the final sign-off on cremation. Now, we talked about the dirty practice of death and the financial gain to be. So if you're a cremation service, are you really going to be like, question? How hard are you going to question these forms from doctors who are legitimate doctors?
Yeah.
Oh, you say they died because of
I don't want to
this?
make $9,000 today.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to cremate
All I
this
got to do
person.
is throw them in a little
incinerator,
and I get the money. Cool. I'll sign off on these forms.
Yeah, right.
It was the Form C that had aided in raising suspicion. Shipman often asked a practice directly across the street from him to fill out the Form C for him.
Although that makes sense. Why would you drive it across town?
Well, if
it's
you're
like
bringing
if there's a practice right across
if you're
the
bringing
street.
like 20 a week over there, like, man, you're involved in a lot of people's deaths over there, Shipman. It's weird. We're doing the same thing over here, and we had 2 this week. You had 20. What's going on?
Yeah.
I mean, I know you got more patients, but damn.
I mean, typically a good doctor would be someone who keeps people alive.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not saying you're a bad doctor. We're just
right. Dr. Linda Reynolds, one of the doctors in the practice across the road, raised concerns with the local coroner about how many Form Cs they were filling out for Shipman. Dr. Reynolds' practice was 3 times the size of Shipman's, and in the 3 months before she had made her report, her practice had 14 deaths. In the same period, Shipman had requested she fill out 16 Form Cs. So he's done 2 more than her, and hers is 3 times the size. So do the math there. He's doing, it doesn't equate.
Right.
The number did not include patients who had been buried, who had died in the hospital, whose deaths had been certified by the coroner, or Form Cs that had been filled out by other practices. So this wasn't even scratching the surface as to how many he was actually involved in. This is just the Form Cs that everything fit the criteria for them doing it.
Right.
Deborah Bambroff of Frank Massey and Sons Funeral Parlor also expressed concerns about how Shipman's patients all seem to have died in a similar fashion. She was interviewed in the special I was talking about that's on YouTube.
Yeah.
So the Masseys, they own like one of the more beloved funeral parlors at the time.
Right.
I don't know if it's still around or not. They were a family-run business, and Frank Massey was running it, and his daughter worked there. And she's like, Dad, they were sitting down for dinner one night, and they're like, this doesn't add up. This Dr. Shipman keeps bringing in so many, and all of them, they're women that are, it's all older women. They're all dying fully clothed.
Yeah.
They're dying in bed fully clothed. This doesn't add up. She was saying like she does this for a living, so she sees like usually the older women that would die, they'd be in their nightwear, they'd be in a nightgown or whatever. They'd been bedridden for a while, or they would die. A lot of times they would die in the chair in the living room, on the couch, or whatever. Right. And it was like every time it was like they seemed to be doing well, in good health. And then all of a sudden they're fully clothed and dead in their bed.
Yeah.
And it just didn't, a lot of this stuff didn't add up.
I could see the father's response. Like, listen, honey, let's go out on the yacht today and we'll talk about it. Because they're getting rich off this shit. Right. It's like at the same time, it's like, should we raise concerns?
And he's looking at her like, are you sure?
We are living in a mansion now. Right. We were living in the funeral parlor.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm considering getting a gold Rolex for Shipman for Christmas.
Yeah. The Shipman thing. We'll talk about that. Which color of this Corvette do you like?
The coroner next made a report to the local police. Unfortunately, they were unable to find sufficient evidence to bring charges. The Shipman inquiry later blamed the police for assigning inexperienced officers to the case. Yeah, it sounds like the investigators involved in his case early on. It's like I don't know. The book made it sound like he was like they should have had yakety sax playing in the background. Yeah. Bush League. Between April 17th, 1998, when the police abandoned the investigation and Shipman's eventual arrest, he killed 3 more people. In August of 1998, taxi driver John Shaw contacted the police, informing them that he suspected Shipman of murdering 21 of his patients. He was also in that YouTube special, talking about how he would like drive around these elderly patients who seem to be in good spirits, doing well, not terminally.
Next thing you know, they're gone.
Not necessarily terminally ill. He would deliver them to Shipman's office, and then they wouldn't come out.
Killing all his customers.
Son of a bitch. Right. Yeah, it's like the opposite of the cremation service. He's like,
somebody's got to suffer, right?
Yeah. He brought this big list of like all of these people he'd been driving that had suddenly just died under Shipman's care.
Wow.
His last victim, Shipman, was Kathleen Grundy, who was found dead at her home on June 24th, 1998. Shipman was the last person to see her alive. He later signed her death certificate, recording, quote, old age as the cause of death.
That was a mistake, because Grundy was in super good health.
Yeah, it didn't seem to fit the mold. Usually people who die of, quote, unquote, old age are bedridden for months, and it's because multiple organs are failing at once. This was something I found interesting that the book described. There actually is old age deaths, you know.
Yeah,
Usually,
absolutely.
You know, usually there's a direct explanation like liver failure, you know, heart attack, that's a stroke, whatever.
But when you have multiple organs failing
at once,
and,
it goes
and
under
full
old
body
age.
systems failing. Yeah, and it's a slow process.
Usually you're real old. Like I would say old age deaths are probably more 90s, 100s.
Yeah, late 80s at
Other
the
than that,
earliest, I
one
would say.
particular thing's probably failing as opposed to multiple at once like that.
Right.
Grundy's daughter, lawyer Angela Woodruff, became concerned when solicitor Brian Burgess informed her that a will had been made, apparently by her mother. Previously, Angela had handled all of her mother's legal affairs, and she was made the sole primary beneficiary of her mother's estate and everything.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah,
her
her
daughter's
daughter-
a lawyer. That's perfect.
Yeah, her daughter Angela was supposed to get everything when her mom died, and all of a sudden there's this new will where her doctor is supposed to get the estate and everything. He made a big fuck up here. Not only is it like he turning financial gain all of a sudden out of killing a patient,
Right.
but he's killing a patient whose daughter's a lawyer and taking all of the stuff she was supposed to get.
He couldn't have
like
known.
you couldn't have picked the worst like patient to do
Yeah.
this, you know.
He didn't know, right? And you're bound to make a mistake when you're killing hundreds of people.
Yeah, no doubt. There were obvious doubts about the authenticity of the will. That's another issue, is that the will he wrote up, he should have practiced more because it was god-awful. Everybody that knew what a will looked like was looking at this thing like, who did a kid make this? It was made with like a $10 typewriter.
Sure he didn't write it out in his terrible doctor handwriting.
Right.
All doctors have.
Had like cereal fucking stains on it.
Right.
Milk. It excluded Angela and her children, but left £386,000 to Shipman. Damn, she was doing well, huh?
Yeah.
Burgess told Woodruff to report it, and she went to the police, who began an investigation. Grundy's body was exhumed, and when examined, it was found to contain traces of diamorphine, or heroin, often used for pain control in terminal cancer patients. And this is something he'd been doing, where he would kill a person by injecting them with an overload of morphine, and then he would go and fill a prescription for morphine for them after they had already died, and that would be basically his morphine for the next victim he was going to do. Killing them, going and filling a prescription, then filling out all the paperwork for their death, and using that morphine from their prescription to kill the next person, and so on it goes.
Wow.
Pretty
What a racket.
clever system he had going there.
Yeah.
Shipman claimed that she was an addict and showed them comments he had written to the effect in his computerized medical journal, which he grew to embrace after shitting all over it at his previous practice. He was all about the computer.
All about the computer now, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
The will was also found to be a forgery. A forensic investigator determined that Kathleen Grundy had not been the one to sign it. Imagine he probably just like used her lifeless hand to sign the damn thing.
I don't think he even did that. He probably just looked at a copy of it or just tried to copy it the best he could.
Shipman was arrested on September 7th, 1998, and was found to own a typewriter of the kind used to make the forged will. The police then investigated other deaths Shipman had certified and created a list of 15 cases to investigate. It's amazing how when money gets involved, things start to progress, right? He's killing these older people, and I think the police investigating it initially were like, I don't know how much stock they put into it. He's a credible doctor, and they're looking at it like these are older people. They're going to die soon anyway. I think that's honestly how they looked at it. But then when a will is produced kind of suspiciously, and this lawyer daughter gets involved, and
I was about to say,
it's time to get busy here.
I think it's mostly the lawyer daughter that really pushed flags here. What raised all the
She
red
was
flags.
doing the more investigating, it seemed like.
Well, she's the daughter. She's motivated.
Yeah. Police then discovered a pattern of his administering lethal doses of opiates, signing patients' death certificates, and then falsifying medical records to indicate that they had been in poor health. So he was setting this whole thing up, premeditating it every time, getting better and better at it.
And this is pretty much the case that took him down.
Yeah,
this is pretty much
he got greedy. That's what serial killers do, right? They always get away with it. They get away with it. They get cocky. They become invincible in their own eyes, and then they fuck up. And that's when police get them. They just kind of wait for them to screw up.
Yep.
The greed is what ultimately got him. Let's talk trial and imprisonment. Shipman's trial began October 5th, 1999. He was charged with the murders of Marie West, Irene Turner, Lizzie Williams, Jean Lilly, Ivy Thomas, Muriel Grimshaw, Mary Quinn Kathleen Wagstaff, Bianca Pomfret, Nora Nuttall, Pamela Hillier, Maureen Ward, Winifred Miller, Joan Malia, and Kathleen Grundy. Now, I say all those names because that's, 15 or whatever that he was being tried for. And yet, it sounds like a lot. I'm reading this list, and that's not even a tenth.
That is not even scratching the surface.
So you have to it is important to keep some levity here and imagine all these 215 or whatever that he was supposedly for sure had killed, and he probably killed a lot more, or 250 or whatever. That's so many people. That's so many people. Like, all the people you know may not even be in the 200s. You know,
Dude,
like,
think about how many people he affected just overall.
Yeah, and then you think about the spider web that shoots off of each one of those. All the people affected, their families.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's unreal,
unbelievable, and completely unjustified in 95% of these cases, I'd imagine. Like I said, there was probably cases where they were in great pain, and it was like kind of a what was his name? Dr.
Kevorkian?
Yeah, Kevorkian.
Assisted suicide? Yeah.
But still, you need their consent. Like, maybe they're in pain, but they don't want to die yet.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And then you're still way wrong for doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so his legal representatives tried but failed to have the Grundy case, where a clear motive was alleged, tried separately from the others, where no motive was apparent. So, yeah, it is hard to get a conviction with no motive, because even we're still speculating on his motive as to why he did this.
Right.
The prosecution opened the trial stating that Shipman enjoyed killing his patients and exercising control over life and death. So that's yet another reason why he fucked up so bad with Grundy, is that then helped him get convicted, because there was a clear motive as to him taking her estate and everything. All the other killings, you know, it's like, well, why would he do this? Like, that's all the defense has to say. But with that one, it's like, obviously he created a fake will and was going to take all this shit. That's a clear motive. Evidence was presented throughout the trial that quickly stacked against Shipman the peaceful position of the bodies he found, quote unquote found, the carelessness to which he pronounced someone dead, the fact that many of his patients had their cause of death listed as simply as old age, quote unquote. We forgot to mention that a lot of times when he would administer this morphine and kill his patients, there would be family members in the other room, and he would fake call the ambulance on the phone in front of them, calling no one. He's talking to nothing, and he's basically, you know, like going through the call and progressing and checking their pulse, fake and all that shit in front of the family. And then he basically at the end of the phone call goes, "It's okay, we don't need you. She's gone."
Wait, nope, she's dead.
Yeah.
Yep, she's dead. Never mind. Never mind.
So that's the game he would play, because he knew if he actually called the ambulance that they would ask a lot more questions. More than likely, they would still come out to examine the body, and it would become a whole big thing and be a lot harder.
Do you think the 911 responder or whatever it is in Britain is going to be like, oh, she's just dead now? Okay, well, that's fine.
Yeah. Imagine he's on the phone.
No big deal.
He tells him it's okay, you don't have to come. She's gone. Hangs up the phone. All right, let's get her over to the crematorium. Let's get this. They're like, what just happened? She was fine 5 minutes ago. She was fine 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
This has all happened so fast.
Yeah.
Often when Shipman found a body, he would tell anyone who happened upon him that he had called in an ambulance. However, an examination of phone records showed no calls had ever been made, so that didn't look good either.
No.
Because Shipman was insistent on his innocence, his defense team had tried to tear down the prosecution's argument and build a favorable narrative for their client using information he himself supplied. The trial concluded on January 25th, 2000, and on January 31st, 2000, after 6 days of deliberation, the jury found Shipman guilty of 15 counts of murder and 1 count of forgery. Justice Forbes subsequently sentenced Shipman to life imprisonment on all 15 counts of murder, with a recommendation that he never be released, to be served concurrently with a sentence of 4 years for forgery of Grundy's will. On February 11, 2000, 10 days after his conviction, the General Medical Council formally took Shipman off its register. So, yeah, no longer able to practice. Not that he was going to have the chance from behind bars.
Right.
2 years later, Home Secretary David Blunkett confirmed the judge's whole life sentence just months before the British government ministers lost their power to set minimum terms for prisoners. Shipman consistently denied his guilt, disputing the scientific evidence against him. He never made any public statements about his actions. So there's one thing you can say is he definitely never did this for fame or notoriety. He was not one of those serial killers that would brag about his numbers or anything like that.
He would rather all this fly under the radar forever.
Yeah, so his wife, Primrose, steadfastly maintained her husband's innocence even after his conviction. On January 13th, 2004, at 6:20, Shipman hung himself in his cell at Wakefield Prison on the eve of his 58th birthday. He was pronounced dead at 8:10 p.m. A statement indicated that Shipman had hanged himself from the window bars of his cell using bed sheets. Some of the victims' families said they felt cheated, as his suicide meant they would never have the satisfaction of Shipman's confession, nor answers as to why he committed his crimes. It seems like he was never going to confess regardless.
He wasn't.
The book brought up how he had mentioned to another inmate at the facility that if he had lived to see 60, that his wife wouldn't get this settlement. There was some settlement that his wife was due to get if he died before 60. Maybe some kind of life insurance thing or whatever. So he was doing it to help his Primrose that had always stood by him. Right. The Home Secretary, David Plunkin, noted that celebrating was tempting, saying, "You wake up and you receive a call telling you that Shipman has topped himself, and you think, is it too early to open a bottle? And then you discover that everybody's very upset he's done it." Yeah, so he couldn't celebrate because he felt bad for the families that got no closure.
Yeah.
Let's read that again in British. You wake up and you receive a phone call telling you that Shipman has topped himself, and you think, is it too early to open a bottle? Then you discover that everybody's very upset he's done it. Damn it! I can't even celebrate.
That wanker!
That wanker's won again.
Right.
His death divided national newspapers, with the Daily Mirror branding him a cold coward and condemning the prison service for allowing his suicide to happen. They wanted him to live and think about what he'd done for much longer. The Sun ran a celebratory front page headline, "Ship, ship, hooray." What?
That's the most British headline I've ever heard. Ship, ship, hooray, old boy.
Yeah. The bad man's gone.
Old ship.
The Independent called for the inquiry into Shipman's suicide to look more widely at the state of Britain's prisons as well as the welfare of inmates. In The Guardian, an article by Sir David Ramsbotham, a former chief inspector of prisons, suggested that the life sentence being placed by indefinite sentencing for this would have at least given prisoners hope of eventual release and reduced the risk of their ending their own lives by suicide, as well as making their management easier for prison officials. That's clever thinking.
Yeah, really.
So you make them think they have a chance of getting out, but really they don't.
Right.
Shipman's motive for suicide was never established, though he reported he told his probation officer that he was considering suicide to assure his wife's financial security after she was stripped of his National Health Service pension. That's what it was, his pension.
Okay.
And he told, I thought it was weird that he would even talk to other inmates, because I feel like he would feel so superior to them that he wouldn't even bother talking to them. So that makes sense that he actually told his probation officer this, not the... Primrose Shipman received full NHS pension. She would not have been entitled to it if Shipman had lived past 60. Additionally, there was evidence that his wife, who had consistently protested Shipman's innocence, despite the overwhelming evidence, had begun to suspect his guilt.
Just now?
That's right. She actually sent a letter to him in prison telling him to tell her the truth no matter what it was. And so they also believe that maybe that led him to do this. That could have played it. So I think it was about the pension, and also he just didn't... He was not the type to enjoy anything about life behind bars. He wanted to be a practitioner. And
he probably never wrote her back either, because why would you want your wife to have that idea? It's better to just leave her wondering that you might have been a good person still. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If she's still not convinced completely, it's better to just give her the money and leave. Yeah. Especially someone like him.
Yeah. In January 2001, Chris Gregg, a senior West Yorkshire detective, was selected to lead an investigation into 22 of the West Yorkshire deaths. Following this, the Shipman inquiry into Shipman's activities, submitted in July 2002, concluded that he had killed at least 215 of his patients between 75 and 98. Man, 75. I didn't know it went back that far. That's so long. 75 to 98. Janet Smith, the judge who submitted the report, admitted that many more of the deaths of a suspicious nature could not be definitively ascribed to him. So a lot of them that were fishy, you got to think he probably played a role in at least half of those. For sure he did it directly. Yep. So I'm sure it was more. In total, 459 people died while under his care between 71 and 98, but it is uncertain how many of those were murder victims, as he often was the only doctor to certify the death. Smith's estimate of Shipman's total victim count over that 27-year period was 250. The General Medical Council charged 6 doctors who signed cremation forms for Shipman's victims with misconduct, claiming they should have noticed the pattern between Shipman's home visits and his patients' deaths. All of these doctors were found not guilty. Yeah, I mean, that's tough to put that on them. You know?
Can't put that on them.
They're just trying to do their job, and they're not going to assume this guy's doing this kind of shit.
And how are you going to do your job right as a doctor while you're constantly watching this other guy, suspecting him and reporting what he's doing? You can't do that.
Yeah. As of early 2009, families of the victims of Shipman were still seeking compensation for the loss of their relatives. In September of 2009, authorities announced that the letters Shipman wrote in prison would be sold at auction, but following complaints from victims, relatives, and the media, they withdrew the letters from the sale. Yeah, that's fucked up. Why are you selling that stuff?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Shipman effect. Now, we talked about some positive came out of this because it brought light to how this could go on in the medical field and how they need to have more checks and balances. The Shipman case and a series of recommendations that followed in the Shipman inquiry report led to changes to standard medical procedures in Britain. This is now referred to as the Shipman effect. Many doctors reported changes in their dispensing practices, and a reluctance to risk over prescribing pain medication may have led to underprescribing. So it could have had a bad effect as well, where people were suffering when they didn't need to. Death certificate certification practices were altered as well, but perhaps the largest change was the movement from single doctor general practices to multiple doctor general practices. This was not a direct recommendation, but rather because the report stated that there was not enough safeguarding and monitoring of doctors' decisions. So the Shipman effect is real. He changed everything. We talked about doing crimes that changed history.
We should title this The Shipman Effect.
The Shipman effect.
Yeah.
Or Dr. Death is pretty catchy too.
Dr. Death, that's like a lot of stuff though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
There's like a lot of things called Dr. Death. If you search Shipman Effect,
right?
Well, you're going to find all that stuff, but maybe you'll find our podcast too. What do you think? All right, so that's it. That's Harold Shipman. Harold Frederick Shipman. Little
Dr. Death and the Shipman effect.
That's right. Very nice.
Let's get as many keywords in there as we can.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, guys. Well, we hope you enjoyed Dr. Death and the Shipman effect.
Yeah, that was something a little bit different.
A little bit different.
We've done different type of serial killer.
Yep.
Different motives.
Yeah.
Maybe.
A little fun freebie for you.
Right.
Let's get some shout outs and some Oh My Gaia.
All right. I'll do Oh My Gaia while you're
It's hot as hell in this studio right now, and my pits still smell delightful because I'm wearing Oh My Gaia, an all natural deodorant and beard oil company.
Oh, that's right. Specializing in paraben and aluminum-free products. Lauren,
Yes.
very good. Their innovative line of deodorants inhibit the growth of odor-causing bacteria while maintaining effectiveness. At Oh My Gaia, they use only all-natural and paraben and aluminum-free organic ingredients. They have a ton of scents: vanilla, cherry almond, sandalwood, lavender, lemongrass, Egyptian musk, coconut, dreamsicle, leather. And we have our very own scent, True Crime Pine. Guys, it has our old school logo on it. It's every jar of Oh My Gaia comes with like a sticker that, a tamper-free sticker so you can tell, or tamper-evident rather. And the True Crime Pine has our mug shots on it. So if you want to see our ugly mugs on the side of your deodorant, there you go.
And it will get you off murder charges.
It will?
Sure.
It'll cover up scents.
It'll cover up everything.
Okay, great.
Yep.
But we have good news.
OJ was actually wearing it.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, during his investigation.
Well, there you go. That's a great. We should get him on.
Yeah.
We should get him to do a commercial.
Hello, Twitter world. Have you seen his Twitter? Hello, Twitter world. Good news. He's so fucking weird. I can't believe he's on Twitter now.
Yeah, he's so weird. Everybody is. But good news, creepers. If you use the word creeper, you can get 15% off your order at ohmygaia.com. If you use the word creeper, CREEPER, at ohmygaia.com, OHMYGAIA.com, or at shop_ohmygaia on Instagram.
Hell yeah. Go do it.
Do it right now.
Do it. Stop smelling.
You'll feel better.
Smelling shitty.
Yeah. And stop putting cancer aluminum in your pits.
That's right. I want to thank everybody who went and rated and reviewed on iTunes this week. If you rate and review on Stitcher, we'll get around to you too. We let those build up for a little while. We don't get as many. A lot more people use iTunes. But yeah, thank you for taking the time. Even if you just go click 5 stars, that's awesome too. Right. But I want to thank the people that actually took the time to write a review this week. Tara the Great from the U.S. Patsy730 from the U.S. Guitar Picker 61. There you go. A fellow guitar player, Michael.
There we go.
Says that he's from a frugal freeloader. Excellent podcast. Very well researched. Right on. Someone who embraces it. That's what's up.
That is how you take it.
That's what's up, man. SRO1107 from the U.S. said, great podcast, 5 stars. Thank you. And Katie Hintz from the U.S. Said, awesome, 5 stars. How have I not heard of this podcast before this week?
We have no idea.
Yeah, man. Some people stumble across and then they've got like 100 episodes to listen to before they got to go to Patreon.
That's right.
Well, once you're out of those,
80, I think.
Yeah, but once you're out of the free episodes and you need more content, if you haven't done so yet, go to patreon.com/truecrimeguys. Get a bunch more episodes. A lot of which are
well
over 3
30
hours.
now.
Yeah, a lot of which are over 3 hours. We put even more time into those.
Yep.
A lot of times we pick the bigger known cases. We've given some out for free now, so you guys get a little taste of what to expect when you go over there.
We're releasing the older ones once a month. So they're roughly about 2 years delayed from when we recorded them.
Right.
So don't hit us up on Instagram going, hey, we don't use this word, guys, or this didn't happen anymore. Listen, it's
back
been
then
2
it was
years.
acceptable.
Yeah, that was 2017.
Back then you could say prostitute, okay?
All right, perfect thing to end on.
Well, no, if you go over there, you also get Michael's show exclusively on Patreon, Higher Thoughts.
That's right. Higher Thoughts every week, every Saturday-ish.
He answers a lot of fan questions and all that stuff. I hate using the word fan. A lot of listener questions.
Yeah. If you guys go on Patreon, if you download the Patreon app, which is working much better now, I know some of you got discouraged when we first started it, but
they got their shit together.
They got their shit together. It's working pretty well now. And you can comment on post, and that's the easiest way because you can ask relevant questions to each episode and whatnot. But however you want to do it, if you want to hit us up on Twitter at True Crime Guys, Instagram at True Crime Guys, True Crime Guys Facebook group, or the True Crime Guys closed group if you don't want your family and friends knowing that you're a creeper. That's cool too. You can do that. And you guys can hit me up at And I'm Michael on Instagram and on Twitter. And you can ask questions, whatever. I'll respond to them on the show. If you got any topic suggestions, shoot them my way.
Yeah, and we got Instagram and Twitter for the show overall. I run the Instagram and the Twitter. Well, Michael's on our...
I just said that.
Oh, you did? Okay. Yeah. At True Crime Guys.
It's all good. We got
it. Whatever. We don't need you anyway.
All right. Just kidding. All right, guys. With that, keep creeping or don't. Whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Just fuck off.
No,
keep creeping. We love you. See you next week.
All right.
Oh, no, wait. Yeah. Patreon, is there...
Freeloader series.
Freeloader series next week?
It's coming next week.
What's it going to be?
I have no idea. We're coming up on Bundy pretty soon.
I'm trying to think.
But I keep saying that, but
no,
then it's
I think
not
that
Bundy.
was a little. I think we did like a one-off, like a Tookie Williams. I think that one's soon. I think we did that pretty early on.
Okay.
We did the what was it? Ruby Ridge.
Ruby Ridge. Early
that one.
on.
It could be that one.
Could be.
Ruby Ridge, which we also kind of threw in the Oklahoma City bombing with that one, and Waco. We talked a lot about domestic terrorism in that one.
That's right.
And how the ATF responds to those, sometimes in not the best fashion.
Right.
Ruby Ridge is a great example.
It is.
But yeah, there's a lot of stuff on there. And we did bonus episodes. We've talked to Esther on there. Michael's talked to Esther on Higher Thoughts. There's two. There was one where we talked to Esther for a while, and then there's also an episode of Higher Thoughts where you had her on.
Yeah, that one's a little more current. The one where I had Esther on Higher Thoughts, I think, was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we've talked to listeners.
Want to know what Esther's up to?
We've talked to creepers on there.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on there for $2. All right, guys. See ya for the Freeloader series next week, and enjoy that.
Yep.
Get another little dose of Patreon if you're a freeloader.
That's right, guys. And then Patreon after that.
Yep. All right. See y'all.
True crime guys. In the desert, we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us because you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you. Sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army. We out here making murder, get murder, get murder. True crime guys. In the desert, we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us because you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you. Sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army. We out here making murder charming.